to the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, an unfiltered look into the global vacation and short-term rental industry.
I'm Mateo Bradford.
And I'm John Stokinger.
And this is our podcast. We bring the right people to the table at the right time, giving you an inside view and take on the short-term rental industry like no other podcast can.
Good morning, Mateo. How are you, my friend?
Good morning, John. Fantastic, as usual. What's going on?
Well, season 2, episode 3.
Yes.
Where it's the end of the year. We have this one. We got one more. We're gonna put out. I'm pretty excited. We're gonna take a week off between Christmas and New Year, which we don't do often. So we're actually gonna give ourselves a little bit of a present for ourselves and come back strong in 2022. But excited. I'm super excited about today's guest.
Me too. Yeah, me too. This one is special. This is family. So I am honored to have someone who, what we like to do here, John, we like to bring the voices of the people who make up this industry from all over. There's so many things that make the fabric of SCR special. And, at the base of that is the people who do it, and the people who are providing space and providing people, their homes or their properties, is the root of hospitality, right? And it breaks down to being human beings. And so who we have today is someone who is I think she actually coined this style activist. And I like to think of her as a Renaissance woman because, I'll say she's known me since I think, I was first, kind of started to walk. And so, she's been part of the fabric of my life forever. So, again, when I'm looking at the things that she's done, I've seen quite a bit of it. And, at the core of all her work is people in their humanity is the best way to kind of put it, because she's done, work with AIDS and people in that community in Portland and for a very long time. But at the same time, she was always supportive of the local theater groups and had her own theater experience with the Fallen Angel Choir, which I will make her tell us about because it was amazing. But at the same time would spread her kind of activism to everyone in the most random places. And I have a story about that too, because she got me a Letterman jacket one time. It was just random, but it was amazing. And I think it encapsulates kind of who she is and what she does for people. And so, she has an organization called Out of Our Closet. I'm going to let her talk all about that, but I want to get big into the introduction because I'll go on forever because we've known each other forever. So we're going to cover some things, but I want to introduce Judith Rizzio. Love you, like a second mom.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Welcome to our show. Can't wait to tell our story. We've been looking forward to doing this.
Absolutely. Hi, John. Hi, Teo. Hi, darling. This is so much fun. I'm thrilled that I get to be the end of 2021, one of the season, and let's all dive in believing that 2022 is going to be a hell of a lot better. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for letting me be here today.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure.
So I want to dig right in, and I want to kind of get your story, but I want to start with, how did you get into hosting? From the recent future, I've known that you've been renting out, your space, and I'll let you tell all about it for a while, but I want to know, how did you get into it and kind of what keeps you doing it?
We built that. I should say, actually, my husband literally built that. Here and there, a little help with some friends, but it was amazing. And that took quite a while. But when it was up and going, it was mostly just going to be a studio for me and a little guest house type of situation. And it was so underused in many ways. And so when the idea of Airbnbs came about, it was a very obvious shift for us to go, you know what? This could really be something we could do. It could help us out. We live in a beautiful area of Portland. We're very fortunate that we were able to buy in when we still could afford it. Right, I cannot literally afford my house if I were to buy it now.
Right.
I mean, I'm not joking. I mean, but with that said, it was a real easy way to take this beautiful space, and it really is. It's above our garage that Jim built from cement up, and so and we call it the nest because it's up in the trees. We have some trees around us, and it has that feeling. We wanted it to have that feeling of, being held, being, feeling that cozy up there feeling, even though we are in Northeast Portland, which is on the outskirts of downtown. But, Portland's a bit of an itty bitty city when it comes to areas. And Northeast, where we live, happens to be a really beautiful, lots of old trees, lots of old houses. Ours is almost 100 years old. And so we said, let's go for it. And that's now a good 6 or 7 years ago. And it's of course, with COVID for a while, that was probably the largest dip. But it has been really a wonderful, successful experience. And the one thing that I think did well is we made sure that it was a separate place, because I really am not one of these hosts that likes to engage all the time. I like my own privacy. I want them to feel like they're not obligated. And we were able to do that to create a separate entrance on. And it was very mindfully done. Worked out for both entities.
Nice.
So that's sort of how it began.
So Northeast, and I'm somewhat familiar with Portland, obviously not as much as you and Mateo. I spent 3 years in Hood River, back at Y2K. Actually, I spent Y2K in Hood River. So we all thought that everything is going to crash, and it didn't. Imagine that. But so are you really close to the river? Was it the Columbia River Gorge? Is that correct? Am I remembering it correctly? It's been a long time.
Are you talking about Northeast Portland?
Yeah, your location.
The location is right in Northeast, in an area
in the city.
Right in the city.
Okay.
And it is actually off of a very busy corner. And I remember when I moved here, I thought, oh no, we're so near, where the bus is, and there were some stores there. And that way back when, it was pretty sketch area until a lot of gentrification came around. Mm-hmm. And now what occurred is something that makes where we live a amazing place to have an Airbnb.
Right.
Literally, I'm not just saying this, 30 seconds away, you can pick up a bus that goes downtown. You can go to Starbucks. There's a little cozy little shopping area that includes Starbucks, a UPS, store, a resale shop for children's clothes, a Whole Foods.
There you go.
And so and little restaurants and here and there, things, places where you can buy little things, and a children's bookstore. With all that said, it creates, what one guest said, my favorite part of this, Airbnb is in the morning I can get up and walk and get coffee at 3 different places that I can choose from. And at 9:45 at night, I can run over to Whole Foods in my pajamas and get a pint of Haagen-Dazs if I want. And it's that sort of sense of, and yet it's a very fun private place on this very pretty street. So that, that's where it is. And I know that is where people really, that they enjoy. It's so accessible very quickly to being in Portland.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's you said something about, being mindful in how you have your space set up. And I think that is something, to me, when I see you, as a result of like who you are in this space, because in the work that you do. And so I actually want to get into a little bit of that, right? And let you kind of tell your own story, because to me, it's reflective of who you are. And I think being able to share that experience with people And, I think we look at things from the outside perspective, but don't really know until we're on the other side, when people are like thinking of us and have been mindful of us in that space, how much that's really important. And, I think now more than ever, we see that with the travelers, but you've been, you love, it seems like you have a love for helping people and helping people be themselves and find themselves. Where did that come from? And like, how did that, kind of develop along your journey?
That's very sweet. The closest sort of sense of spirituality in my life, it comes from that driving force is to create things that are a part of my passions and extend that out to others, and then to also try to create the least amount of suffering and pain that I can in my small ways, maybe sometimes in a bigger way, for those around me. And it's to me, it's been the most successful part of my life, is having those experiences. All the other stuff is wonderful, but when that happens, I'm at my happiest. And it gives me great purpose. So, and that started really early on, I think, because I was pretty much on my own as a kid in lots of ways. And I had to sort of, I left home. Frankly, I sort of like skipped out of the house with my brother. And I was on my own completely. And if it wasn't for the kindness, literally, of others and the generosity, and me also realizing that if I was going to survive, I had to put what mattered in my life forward and make some calculated risks, and because I had no choice, but also so that I could be a part of a bigger family, because I was a bit estranged, not in a terrible way. I don't want to say, I was the, the bohemian, as my dad would said, of the family, and very much like he didn't really get me. He was like, an old-fashioned Sicilian patriarch. And right. So it was not easy. But with that, I also got involved in many things that changed my life. I studied with Swami Satchidananda with the Integral Yoga Institute. Mm-hmm. And his whole bent was on karmic yoga, which is selfless service. So right from the beginning, what he taught me was to teach yoga practice, but I was assigned and taught how to teach. This is a good example, how to teach yoga in prisons with people with handicaps and wheelchairs and children. And this was done, I'm talking 1971, 72. So it was, I can honestly say that was the beginning of that sort of energy. And also I was involved in the anti-war movement, Vietnam War, and realized that I really knew that I was someone, like it or not, that was going to live my life more out loud than not. And I know that had to do with also how I was squelched as a kid, being told all the time, stop making those silly faces, if you, and I was a chubby kid. And, if you want to have a man in your life, lose weight, like conform, and I would push against it. And it drove my dad crazy. And I also, really, and I'm bisexual. And I know that as a little girl, that was just very like, what's happening here, and so I think it very early on, that occurred. And then also came into all the politics I did in the theater I did, and also the 28 years of doing HIV work, mm-hmm. and being a mom, etc. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a lot of boxes that are checked there.
Yeah.
Which, and you talk about, living out loud. I'm on your gallery page of your website, and amazing. And I absolutely love it. And, and we'll go ahead and put a link to your website and the different things that you're involved in on our website, so people can go ahead and check this out. Awesome. But far from not living out loud, which is awesome. It's exactly what we like to go ahead and showcase here. on our podcast. My question for you is, and well, on top of, I'm going to need some sort of like dirty secrets about Mateo as a child. I need, before the end of this, I'm going to need some stuff.
Bring it on.
Ammo.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
But of all the different things that you're doing, and to try to bring this back to not bring it back, because I love the direction this is going, but like your outreach and your helping, and do you feel that paved all the different things helped pave the way and open more doors? And with opening doors, do you think there is a type of person that is more apt or more successful in owning and operating like a short-term rental or being a host?
I think the thing that that really people can feel automatically is a sense of, if you don't like engaging with people, and I'm not saying in a way that's heightened or even being beyond who you are, but if that isn't something that you can show interest or a sense of gently greeting and making a connection pretty early on, I know that helps, and I think it gives people this. And I say things that I think people would want to know, which means, we value your privacy. This is your vacation, but you need to know whatever you need. You got our, text us, knock on our back door. But in the meantime, just enjoy this beautiful space. Right. and here. And I think that also shows within the Airbnb. One of my passions, you can see behind me and literally everywhere, my walls are for art. I collect art. I collect local art of artists in town. And also I collected garage selling here and there. The nest was sort of a theme. And I tried not to go ad nauseum, but I did get really cool pictures of nest birds, and sort of quirky. And every time in our guest book, or people will write when they give us reviews, and say, and one of the best parts of that was all the really beautiful art. And so for me, I know my aesthetic, and know how much it brings joy to people in my home, and putting, art that I found that has that sense of embracing something, being in the trees with the birds. I had no idea that would be such a selling point. But I think you really have to have a bit of an open spirit with really good boundaries, so that you know when to begin and end a conversation, so these people can begin their day and you're not holding them up. But if you happen to be out and they come down saying, hey, have a good time, you doing anything special today? As they might have a bag, and a lot of times they're like, yeah, we're going to the gorge or the beach, we're just walking around the neighborhood, right. And then just maybe having quick tips of saying, very cool, hey, by the way, if you're here, this place is pretty cool, you might want to check that out, right. Things like that. So again, I try not to be too much, but I do try to engage in the enjoyment of their stay. And giving them just sort of fun little things. And you know what? Get clues from them. There'll be people that really want to know more, so you can give them more. There's people that are very quiet, and right away this is for them to just chill and have nobody bothering them. Mm-hmm. And I found during COVID, a lot of times that was that way.
Right.
Another thing, though, that we found is the fact that we get a lot of parents that come here and are visiting their grandchildren and their mm-hmm. sons or daughters that live in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Huge amount. Mm-hmm. We almost thought maybe we shouldn't call the place the nest, but the Parent Trap.
Right.
And so, we'll talk, because we're grandparents and, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We've got kids. And so it's a very sweet thing. And to be able to talk to them and about that. And always thank your son and daughter, because a lot of times they're the one that chose our place for their parents.
Probably keeping everybody sane. Yeah.
Yep.
Giving everyone
Absolutely.
their space. I
That's
get
right.
it. Yeah, I
That's
get
right.
it.
A lot of times people say that they're like, "Oh, thank God we have a place to come to," and just for everybody's sake.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I get it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I have a question for you regarding these different things that you did in the past.
Yes.
Can we dive into your HIV and AIDS activism,
Sure.
and what you did there? And the reason I bring this up, it's so my wife of 20 years now, she lost her uncle, I think when she was, I'm not sure the exact age of HIV to HIV.
Yes.
So she knows from the early stages the whole struggle for him. This was probably 30 years ago now. She lost him.
Yes.
So I'm really curious, and I always love to hear these type of stories and kind of what you've done and how you brought light to that.
Okay. I knew about HIV early on because of my theater work, and I did some studying in San Francisco, doing political theater and training with the San Francisco Mime Troupe, and being in that world of political activists and it being expressed through political satire, political theater, etc. And why I tell you that is that the training center I did in 1976 was quite extensive, and I hung out with a lot of amazing actors, including a company of gay guys, and it was called the United Fruit Company. And and they were awesome. They did a lot of things around gay rights and affirming who they are and celebrating their sexuality and this is early on, gay rights stuff. And so they were part of my own community as well, being bi. And so we became, really fast friends. I tell you that because that's 76. And the first person who literally died that I knew, which back then we called it the AIDS cancer, the gay men's cancer. And then it was called ARC. And after that was one of the people from the United Fruit Company. He got sick in 79, and he died at the end of 80. And then one after the other through the 80s, more than half of the group, there were 13 actors in it, all died from HIV and AIDS. So I was going like, what the fuck is going on? These are my friends. These are right. Amazing people, and that my general understanding and realizing too that it wasn't until 85 Reagan didn't even say the word, HIV or AIDS in the White House, and already close to 40,000 predominantly gay men had died, and so I early on got connected with that. Mostly from the periphery, except I was in a company called the Fallen Angel Choir, a political theater group, and I wrote a song. We did parodies, and I wrote a song to a Christmas carol, Chestnuts Roasting on the Open Fire, and that was about my friends dying from AIDS. In 1988, I had a friend who called me and said, "Listen, Judith, I know you've been running resale shops, for nonprofits for years, but we need someone to run our volunteer crew and be on the management team of a place called Our House of Portland." And basically it was a 12-bed home where people lived and died very quickly, most of the time from AIDS. And so it wasn't legally a hospice, but it was palliative hospice care.
Right.
And I helped open that. I was given $5,000, no lie, in 3 weeks to get the community to clean it up. And then I got communities of people that adopted a room and fixed it up. And we had generators in there because we had no electricity. We had people working 24 hours a day around the clock, and we opened it up. And then I was there
on only $5,000.
On $5,000.
Jeez.
And we got federal funds, but literally the redoing was on $5,000. And it was crazy. But, and then I was there over 17 years and I watched close to 400 people leave their bodies from this. And it was just an amazing time. And I became the volunteer coordinator, but then I moved into being the community liaison to all the other HIV organizations. So I had the greatest experience of my life being on, I went into Oregon State Penitentiary once a month for 7 years and helped run their HIV AIDS awareness program inside the prison with the inmates. I was the board chair of that from the outside. I was on from the Urban League's AIDS committee to, it goes on and on and on. We are women's, the women's organization dealing with HIV, the children's organizations. Altogether, I was on something like 13 or 14 committees, Coalition for AIDS Education. And it was a part of my job. And so I was immersed at every level you can. And it was one of the hardest things I did at times, but it was one of the most heart-opening experiences of my life, and also radical experiences, because it took a lot to face those early years and see the constant cycle happen over and over, where there was really too much silence. And, of course, silence equals death is one of the mottos of ACT UP. And that was very true. So that's a lot where, and then after our house, 8 years with 8+ years with Cascade AIDS Project, and worked there. And a matter of fact, it was amazing. I created an archive of Cascade AIDS Project and Oregon ACT UP. It took me 5 years. It's now owned at the Oregon Historical Society. And I now am working with them to do during Pride, June 10th, grand opening, an exhibition of HIV AIDS in Oregon. And so I'm working on that with a designer and creating a exhibition and grand event. That's happening June 10th, 2022. So it's been in my life and will always be in my life,
Absolutely amazing. And I want to go ahead and introduce you to a friend of both Mateo and I. And maybe you already know him, Robert Geller. He runs Fab Stays, Inclusive Accommodations, which is an inclusive accommodations platform. And if your property isn't currently listed on there, you definitely need to go ahead and get it listed, because of anyone, you've checked every single box on inclusivity. So I want to go ahead and make sure that you two are connected. But he's running that whole good friend of Mateo and I's in the industry, and he's been instrumental in bringing inclusive accommodations acceptance and openness in our the vacation rental space. One of the things that he has said, and it's which is, and I'm definitely paraphrasing here, it's been a little while since we spoke with him. For him, and the reason he started Fab Stays, it's not as much it was that initial, it's for safety, for feeling safe as both a host and a guest. So when you as as whatever you are, transgendered, bisexual, LGBTQ plus, fill in the blank here, whatever you are, and you're going ahead and someone's coming into your home to stay there. So that awkward conversation, hey, well, what do you do for work? Well, I actually run his example is I run a gay travel agency. And then you have that. So having that openness ahead of time and that conversation already started.
Yes.
And was pretty instrumental for him. And, in traveling in any sort of in diverse, if you are diverse to where you're traveling, having that a safe place to stay and feel welcomed is huge.
Yes. think that's one of the things that people, when they hear safe a lot with facilities, and they think of the immediate physical safety, and that's important too. Mm-hmm. But there's a feeling that you can get from someone that right from the first time you see them, if there's someone there with a sense of, I hold who you are, not just in my home or the Airbnb, whatever you are offering, but also in my sense of who you are in general.
As a person, as a human.
And I hold you safe, and you don't have to do anything profound with that. You just mostly need to listen and pick up cues. There's certain things people will say, and as a way for me, if I feel it's right, I will sort of sometimes push the envelope and disclose something that most people might not talk about, but if I know that's something that might be within their life, and then also you see this brightness in their face,
right?
And it's not a hard thing to do. It has to be. You need to be not fearful of different, in general, but as a host, you really need to be not only just open, but really a bit curious. Be slightly curious about who this person is, and then take leads. A lot of times what I like to do, if I hear something that they like or whatever, I'm not crazy this way, but the last person that was here, she loves chocolate. So, and my husband and we have a little store that sells really wonderful food. And so I made sure that while they stepped out, I put a bar of really good chocolate, right by the door, and said, thought you might like this. And just things like that. And they were delightful people. And they also were here check this out, for a month from Australia. And so this was a new place for them too. And right. It was and they had to actually leave early because of the new variant. And so they weren't locked out of their country.
Right.
But, just a few days early, but it was really a very fun way to just sort of bond in a quiet way, and it doesn't mean you have to do something really extravagant, but that's the type, to me, that's fun. It makes it fun.
Yeah. And, shout out to Jim too, we're going to have to do another episode with you and Jim. He is, they have a great market, and Jim's an amazing cook, like soul stirring food cook. Like it's almost like torture, because if the people that were staying in the nest knew the food they were missing on the other side of it, I think they'd be pretty upset. So we got to figure out how to get that to them, because shout out to Jim. Jim is an amazing cook, and they would love that.
Here's one of the secrets. It's not a secret at all about Mateo. I know, he really truly is like family. He's like a second son. We have an amazingly strong connection based on a son that we both loved, but when he comes, I know another reason why he really likes to come to our house is the fact that we love to feed him. And he loves it too. And we have such great people.
No doubt about it. Yep. Unapologetically, absolutely, yes. And
And Jim knows how to just lay it out, on every level. And so that's a real joy. And Portland also is a very big food town.
Yeah.
Huge. And so a lot of your guests come for those things. And of course, when we find that out, they completely love the fact that we can guide them anywhere about it, from restaurants to where to, buy whatever they want to buy. And of course, we tell them about and check out our store.
Yeah.
And they come back going, oh man, that is a cool store. And it is. It's a very fun store that has ingredients that are extremely good, extremely fun, a lot of local, a lot of sustainable, you name it. We get it into this teeny little store, and it's a blast. So they love going there as well. But yeah, that's one thing about Teo that we love, is that Jim and I in general, we host dinners at our house I'm not lying, at least once to 3 times a week, with friends and people to keep connections. And Jim, as he always says, well, we got to make dinner for us. You can always make it for someone
What's
else.
a few more, right?
And it's very true. And we both grew up that was a big thing in our growing up lives with our families. We were people around us, bringing them into our home for meals was something that happened.
I think I love that. And I think that's what I've noticed about just the short-term rental space is, you're not the first person that we've talked to or conversation that have come from an eclectic and a immersive, a self-servant, but not self-servant, I'm trying to say selfless background that, just it really folds into the short-term rental, vacation rental space like seamlessly. It's hospitality. It's if you're an outgoing person and you can have conversations and you can communicate and you can these are all hospitable traits. And and you again, I've probably said this way too many times, check all those boxes. Yeah, and it's hard to believe that Mateo likes to eat good food, right?
Yeah. Right.
Next time I'm in the Pacific Northwest, I'm coming too.
I'm trying to get my spot for this week. Like it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Well, Mateo's mom, our sweet Consuelo, she lives on the same street as I do.
Okay.
She lives. I'm not lying. She's a 5-minute at the most walk down the street on 16th. Yeah. So he can just like run back and forth, and which is really fun. And when we get together, one of our favorite things to do is just like take my dog on a walk, and we walk around the neighborhood, and he comes back and we eat a little something. And he's truly a very important part of my life. And to see him, the first time I met Mateo was in San Francisco, and I was going to meet his mom for the first time too. And I knock on the door, and there is Michael Jackson playing really loud on the other side of the door.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the track? This was he was 6. So was it Off the Wall or was this Thriller?
It was Off the Wall.
It had to be Off the Wall.
It was the first. It was Off the Wall, and he opens the door. He was maybe 3. I mean, he was little.
Right. Yeah.
And he looks up and he goes, "Look it, I can dance like Michael Jackson." And all of a sudden, he's just going.
Nice.
And I'm just like, "Whoa, man! Yeah, you go. All right." And he didn't I was trying to go, "Hi, is your mom here?" But it was pretty much a Mateo show. Mateo is Michael, and that's
it still is today. Just Judith, it's still the Mateo show today.
But he does it so well, and I just instantly fell in love with this crazy ass little kid just dancing. And so really I met Mateo before Consuelo by a few Michael Jackson songs, and that created an amazing relationship of his life intertwined in ours. And especially I'm going to share this very quickly. My son Daniel, awesome guy, a strong personality in itself. He, in many ways, Mateo was very much a mentor, an older brother on the outside, in many ways, in many guiding ways too. Thank goodness. He, very young, got liver cancer at 18, and he died at 25.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was brutal. And Mateo was there every step of the way, even though he didn't live in Portland and stuff, and especially for Daniel. And he was that person that Daniel could go and speak to and not have to deal with anybody else who was too close to it, meaning, he was very close to him, but, he was just didn't want to deal with his parents and everything. And then there's no way else to say this, but Mateo and I, were in the room at the exact moment together when Daniel died. And it's something that is hard to explain in general, to have that experience, but to have that together has made me feel like, and on that day, I really believe that it made sense that it was Teo and I that were in the room together, because we were very safe to, again, people for Daniel. And it was something that makes me bonded with Mateo beyond years, or the fact that he's Consuelo's son, a beautiful and brilliant man, all that. Just literally at a soul level, we experienced something in life that most people don't, about someone we dearly loved. And so we are, in that way, connected at the soul, you know.
That's so powerful. You know? I absolutely love that.
It's so crazy. Like I was literally saying goodbye, like going to the airport goodbye.
And he literally was. He walked in to do it. And I actually remember saying, you know, Mateo, he's dying. And of course he was, because we were in a hospice. He goes, no, I know. I said, no, he's dying right now. And I said, just hang here. Can you just hang here for, and it was no more than 3 minutes later, he left, you know, he left his body. And it was the whole feeling in the room was just this holding. And then, and it was, and you know, and Mateo, I felt so bad because he literally had to catch a plane. So he couldn't stay long. But it was as if Daniel knew something at that moment that, and I saw that a lot when I did HIV work. People would hold on sometimes, or wait for whatever, and you could tell that there was a decision made, even if it was so deep in a place that we couldn't relate to, that then they felt okay. Or they would actually wait until someone leaves the room when they know, I have to go, I need to go now because they're holding me here and I gotta go. But it, you know, and so anyway, and I share that in its beauty, not in its any way it's horror.
No, I totally got that. And I know our audience does as well.
Good. And it was such an amazing thing. So in many ways, I think also it was Daniel saying, now, Mom, I'm not going to be here, but you know who is? Mateo. And I know that for a fact. That was a part of that moment too. So anyway, it's why when I see the success of John and Mateo, when I see what you're doing and how you're taking this thing, hospitality, and something that, you know, could be all nothing but business and numbers, et cetera, and giving it a sense of humanity, and how do you make that work, and what that can bring to people in their lives, it makes me really happy. You know, this is what, you know, we have to push against sometimes the immense inhumanity of capitalism, and not seeing that really fun human side of it to make someone's day better, and the experience better, and help other people flourish in the industry. That's good stuff. That's the good stuff of elevating us to enjoy life. And with that normally comes, surprisingly, but not success.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
conscious capitalism.
It's the whole basis of everything that we're trying to do here is, you know, we want to be we're unapologetically, you know, unfiltered.
Yep.
We don't give a shit what anyone else thinks. It's important that we're seeing all sides. You know, and it's fun. And I, like, for me, like you know, and why I do what I do alongside of Mateo and I, you know, we tell the story a lot on the show. You know, we met 5 years ago, when we both kind of stumbled into the industry on the different companies, but at the same time. And we had an instant connection. And then it is built from there. And, you know, it's stories like this that truly it makes it all worth like what we're doing, you know, for ourselves. But because it makes it worth it for ourselves, our audience is going to pull some amazing stuff out of this as well. And And we totally appreciate you joining us. And I know, of course, you wouldn't have said no to Mateo when he asked you, now that I know even more backstory, but.
Yeah. It was a real flattery. I know we're coming to an end, but I want to say a lot of what we're talking about is also why I began Out of Our Closet, which is and I'm a style activist, is the fact that I wanted a passion of mine, and especially for older women and the trans community, to enjoy the sense of enjoying themselves in the clothes that they wear, and in their bodies and in their presence in the world. And I found that fashion and the commerce of fashion and the privilege of fashion, that you had to be the right size, the right age, the right gender, have the right amount of money, and you had to look beautiful. All that stuff was brutally unfair, and something that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna like change this around, because this doesn't work. So I'm going to show you, because this is my new postcard. Do you see? Out of Our Closet.
Nice.
Yeah, I did. Check this out. I just trademarked that.
There you go.
Congratulations.
I'm such a big girl. I had to take, but here's something that is on the card. It says, you have the right to not disappear, to feel confident, to look hot and happy in your clothes. And it goes beyond just that too, but it's that sense of like nobody, unless on days that you do want to just like, hey, I'm out of here, I'm sitting home, or I want to disappear because I need to. The right, no matter who you are, in my case, especially in regards to styling and clothes, no matter what your sense of self or body looks like and all that stuff, you have the right to really dig the threads you're in, and go out in the world and say, look I don't need to hide,
Right. I love it. And this we'll have a link to this. This is actually everything that she just read is on the about section of the Out of Our Closet website. And we'll go ahead and put a link to that as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Judith, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. We appreciate you. I'll let Mateo close this out, but it's a pleasure meeting you.
Really, back at you, John. Hey, listen, you got a place to stay as my guest at Nest.
The only way I'll come is if I get a meal too, though. I'm just going to put that out there.
Well, that goes without saying.
Okay,
that goes
good.
Without saying. Absolutely. Yeah, we'd dig that.
And I'm beyond thrilled you accepted our invitation. This is amazing. I'd love to I do want to get you and Jim back in here, because Jim is awesome as well. And I think you guys represent a lot of the best parts of hospitality. And so you have your story, and I know you and Jim have a story that is also embedded in kind of hospitality and helping people. So we'll definitely have you guys back, and I will see you soon. So
darling,
my reservation for dinner is going to be.
We're ready for you, absolutely ready for you, and you know how much I love you, and
I love you
not
too.
to sound too much as a mama, but I am so proud of what you're doing, and with John, I mean, you're making your mother proud.
Thank you. I appreciate that, but I'm proud of you and what you're doing, and keep doing it. I know you got some big things coming out, so we'll keep looking for you and keep
awesome.
And keep trumpeting the things you do. But
absolutely, keep up the work.